Welcome back. Reading, writing and working with numbers are tasks that most of us can carry out on a daily basis, but for some people this can prove to be difficult.
It certainly can. Take the First Steps is a campaign which aims to improve literacy and numeracy levels amongst the adult population in Ireland. Joining us now with more on this is author Sinead Moriarty, alongside former adult literacy student Michael Duffy. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, folks.
Good morning. Thank you for coming in to us. Michael, can we come to you first and maybe get your story, because you were a busy working man, and it wasn't until you were in your 50s when you got a present of a laptop.
I was 57.
Okay.
I was 57 when I got a present of a laptop.
Yes.
And I was 58 when I got to know how to use it, put it that way. The way I started was technology. I knew nothing about technology at all. And there was lessons coming up, or tutors taking a course, how to use a computer in our local village, Gilshandra. And I said to the tutor, I have a problem, with the spelling, putting a portfolio together, I would have a problem with spelling. And she organised a one-to-one tutoring for me. And I spent about 6 months doing that, one-to-one tutoring. And after that, I moved on to a group setting in a level 3 communications. And that was a big step, going from one-to-one into a group setting.
Yes, of
But
course.
I kept going on ahead and got through that. And I moved on, and now at present I'm doing level 4. So I've done a level 4 communications. I've got a full distinction for that.
So before we talk about that, in order to take that first step, that's the bravest point. It's the most courageous point, isn't it? Where you acknowledge, I need to do something about this. What was the point for you, Michael, that you thought, I need to change, I need to do something about this and address it?
Right. Well, as I said, when I got the laptop, I went in to take the lessons with it. And I was had difficulty spelling.
Yes.
And you had to do out a portfolio, you had to do writing and that. That's when the step came for me.
So it wasn't, because there's lots of people who'll be watching saying, well, I wouldn't be able to use a laptop either, technology. But it was putting in a word or knowing how to spell a word.
Knowing how to spell a word to actually write down on a portfolio.
Yes.
And that's when I took the first step. Now, the day I met the tutor for the first time, the one-to-one tutor, I remember it well. I was going up, I'd go upstairs, and I was going up steps, and I could hear the creak of every step going up as I was going up. And I said to myself, what am I doing? What am I putting myself through this for?
You're questioning it, yeah.
Yeah, and actually my mind was going back to my early days at school, which wasn't right friendly times back in the 60s.
Yeah, of course.
But when the door opened and I went in, and the gentleman, the tutor, shook hands with me, it was a completely different world. So it was.
And you hadn't remembered a friendly experience or a warm environment looking back on your own school days, Michael?
No, there was no warm environment back in the 60s. No, I never experienced anything like that. If you didn't know it, and if you were slow, you got the cane, you got the ruler, whatever, and you were put at the back of the class.
There was no help given to you?
There was no help given.
And what you experienced then in terms of going back then couldn't have been a more polar opposite. It was a welcoming attitude, and the help was there for you.
The help was there.
And who did you meet? Because I know we've talked about this numerous times on the show before, Michael, and we've met lots of different case studies who have gone through the process, and they would have said they would have handed a greeting card to one of their children to write, for example, or even signing their name was difficult. Do you know, was there situations that you found awkward?
Yes, there was. We'd say a simple thing, fill out a tax form. Fill in a tax form for your car. Go in and tax your car,
Yes.
you know. I used to get over that, I'd hand it to the girl and say, I forgot my glasses, or could you help me out with no pen? And 99% of the time that would help you out.
Of course.
And you got to develop skills to get round it, to hide your inability to read, write, and whatever. You got to around it. But it came to the point, but as I said, when I went in, I met that tutor, in the friendly atmosphere. It was completely different. It gave me a hunger to learn.
Yeah.
And I would say to anyone that's thinking of it, don't think about it, do it. And lift that phone and phone National Adult Literacy Agency, because they are there to help you.
Sinead, it's hugely important. It's a huge issue. It does affect a large number of people. Why was it important to you to get involved in something like that?
Well, obviously my life is about reading and writing, and I just think it's the greatest gift you can give anyone is the ability to read. because apart from the practical side of things, you can also escape into a book, you know, if you're having a difficult time. And for me, I have a personal relationship because my mum was a tutor back in the 1980s. And one of the things that you know, NAL are kind of keen to emphasise is there's no typical person. And I remember back in the 80s when nobody had fancy sports cars, this woman turned up in a fancy Mercedes and a big fur coat. And she went into my mum and she needed to learn how to read and write. She just fallen through the cracks in school. And her children were coming home and they were looking for help with their homework, and she was ashamed and mortified. And so that had been her kind of catalyst to come and get help. But the point really is, as Michael said, is that there is no shame. And, you know, if you don't want to go into a group, if you're nervous about going into a group, you can do one-on-one. You can even do it on the phone. You know, so if that's your first step, that's okay. But, you know, I think the important thing is just to know that you're not alone. I mean, there are 60,000 people doing courses at the moment, and think of all the people who aren't doing courses. 1 in 6 in Ireland, adults in Ireland have very strong difficulties with literacy.
Do you think there's still a stigma attached in terms of like, trying to make that first step to realising I have to stop handing the
I'm
form
too
to somebody?
embarrassed, or my level is so bad that I couldn't tell them I can't sign my name, or I can't write a sentence, or...
But as Michael said, this is a completely different experience. This is a warm, giving, encouraging
Welcoming,
experience. You know, so I think it's about making that first step. You know, and when Michael is an amazing example of the results of what can happen.
Well, just go back there, come in a wee bit. When I'm a volunteer with a suicide prevention organisation, but I would not have been fit to organise as a volunteer if I had no impact to literacy. Because you wouldn't be fit to answer the phones. Like, I mean, someone would phone in, like, I mean, you'd have to write down details, write down a name, like, I mean, address, email address, whatever, like, I mean, wouldn't be fit to do that. So when going back to education, going back to literacy, like, I mean, it opened a completely new door to me. Like, when I'm fit to participate more in the community.
And that's so important, isn't it? For your mental health, for your physical health.
But even in
just your whole environment is healthier.
in terms of reading, I mean, that must have been like someone like switching a light on for you. I mean, are you an avid reader now, or are you...
Actually, I am, believe it or not. Yeah, I am.
Do you read Sinead's books?
I'll have to confess I didn't.
Just tell a lie.
No, but yeah, I do. I like reading autobiographies now. I like reading about people, not cookbooks now.
Okay.
Oh, that's you and me both got a latch there, didn't we? He's not going to get yours or mine.
But I think when you're unable to read, I think it's like someone being in a dark room. And when you're able to read, you switch on that light and you're able to see all this around. Like, I feel it's that way. Like, I mean, you know, because you see people on TV, you see people on films. Like, I mean, you wonder what is the person like in reality. But now I can lift a book and I can read them and see the person there.
Get the real story.
See the real story. Like, I mean, for instance, I've read all Michael Harding's books. Like,
yes.
And
you can indulge in your own interests. Sinead, just before we run out of time, you are on book number 13?
13, yeah, that's right.
And
you have a lot of catching up to do, Michael. There's 13 books to catch up with.
There we are, Our Secrets and Lies, and that's out now, Sinead.
It is indeed.
I know you're a very busy lady, so thank you for getting involved in such a worthy cause. It's so important. And as you say, Michael, it's changed your life.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming in, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having me.
Now, after the break, we have a masterclass in this season's autumnal prints. Fashion is up next.